Leora stepped off the small shuttle with her heart beating fast. The human marriage agency had promised her a strong husband, a young worker, someone who could protect her on a wild planet like Earth. They showed her pictures, tall humans with bright eyes, wide shoulders, and perfect smiles. But the man waiting for her at the old wooden fence looked nothing like those images. Jonas Halle stood quietly, his hands folded in front of him. His hair was gray, his back slightly bent, and deep scars ran across his arms like old maps. His clothes were simple, a faded shirt and heavy boots covered in dust. He looked more tired than dangerous, more gentle than strong. Leora stopped walking. This was her husband? Jonas lowered his head the moment he saw her hesitation. His voice was soft, almost shaking. "I am sorry," he said. "I know I look older than what you expected." He placed a hand on his chest as if trying to hide it. "War and farming did this to me." His apology surprised her. Humans, in her world, were known to be confident and stubborn. But this one apologized before she even spoke. She took a slow breath and stepped closer. His eyes were warm, tired, yes, but warm. Leora was younger, her purple skin glowing faintly in the afternoon sun. Her people were tall and graceful, with bright markings on their cheeks. Jonas looked at her with a mixture of fear and respect, like she was something too beautiful for an old man like him. She studied him quietly. The scars on his hands were not small, they told stories. Some were straight, some curved, some deep like old battle wounds. The marks on his knuckles looked like he had lifted heavy weapons once. Or heavy tools. She wondered which of those was more painful. Jonas cleared his throat. "They told you I was 35, didn't they?" She nodded slowly. "I'm 58, he said, unable to meet her eyes. "And I have no excuse, except life was hard. Harder than I expected." Leora didn't know what to say. Her people didn't lie about age. But the agency had lied to her. Still, something in Jonas' voice made her pause. There was no trick in it. No pride. Only a man afraid she would reject him. He tried to smile. "If you want to return on the next transport, I will pay for it. You don't have to stay on this farm with an old soldier." Something moved in Leora's chest. She had expected arrogance. She had expected a man demanding a bride. She did not expect kindness. She stepped closer and touched one of the scars on his forearm. Jonas flinched but didn't pull away. The skin was rough, old, and warm. "This scar," she asked softly, "war or farming?" Jonas let out a breath. "War." She touched another. "And this?" He looked down. "Plow blade, farming." Leora nodded. "Your life was not easy." Jonas laughed softly, but there was no joy in it. "Easy died a long time ago." He turned and picked up her luggage, but she noticed how slowly he moved. His left knee stiffened with every step, and his back curved slightly like an old tree bending from storms. The farmhouse sat at the edge of a wide field of golden crops. But behind it, there was something else, dark trees, tall and silent, forming a thick forest wall. A cold wind came from that direction, carrying a strange smell. She frowned. Jonas noticed. "Don't worry about the woods," he said quickly. "Just stay away from them at night." His voice changed when he said it. A deep caution. A fear buried under his calm tone. Leora looked again at the forest. Something about it felt wrong. Like shadows moved even when the wind didn't blow. She followed him into the house. It was small but clean. Old photographs hung on the walls. Jonas in military uniform. Jonas with younger farmers. Jonas standing beside a large machine. She saw another picture of him younger, with bright eyes and no scars. He looked almost like the humans from the agency brochures. But that man was long gone. As she explored the house, she felt it again, that strange energy from the forest. It pressed against the windows like invisible fingers. She turned toward Jonas. "What is in those woods?" Jonas hesitated. Nothing you need to worry about." She didn't believe him. That night, after unpacking, she stood by the window. The moonlight fell across the fields. The forest looked darker than before, too dark. Then she heard it, a heavy step, another, slow, measured, like something big was moving. Just beyond the tree line, she held her breath. Jonas appeared behind her quietly. "Close the curtains," he said. His voice was firm this time. She obeyed, but not before she saw two small glowing eyes deep in the woods. Staring at the house, Jonas locked the door. "This planet is safe," he said, "but this land has its own rules." Leora realized something important. Then Jonas did not fear her reaction to his age. He feared something else. Something watching them. Something waiting. And as she lay on the guest bed, one thought kept circling in her mind. Who exactly did I marry? And what danger is hiding in those trees? Leora woke before sunrise, her mind still holding the image of those glowing eyes from the forest. The house was quiet, too quiet for a place meant for two people starting a new life. She walked into the kitchen and found Jonas already awake, sitting at the wooden table with a cup of coffee. Staring at the floor like he hadn't slept at all. His shoulders looked heavier than yesterday. He tried to smile when he saw her, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. "Morning. Did you sleep well?" Leora didn't want to lie. "Something was watching us last night." Jonas froze. His fingers tightened around the cup. "You heard it?" She nodded. Jonas sighed deeply, like he had been carrying this truth alone for years. Instead of answering, he stood up and motioned for her to follow him outside. The morning air was cold, and fog covered the fields like a thin white blanket. Jonas walked slowly, his limp more noticeable in the early light. They reached the barn, a large building made of old wood and metal. He unlocked the door. Inside, Leora felt goosebumps rise on her skin. The barn didn't smell like animals or hay. It smelled like metal, oil, and something unfamiliar, something alien. She scanned the area. Tools hung neatly on the walls, but many were damaged or bent in strange shapes. Some looked like they had been struck by claws. Others had deep burns that didn't match any farm tool she knew. At the back of the barn, she found a long metal cabinet with dents all over it. Leora touched one. It was deep, like something strong had slammed into it. "Jonas, what happened here?" Jonas rested his hand against a table, steadying himself. "Before you came, I kept this place safe. I followed the rules. I stayed inside at night. I didn't draw attention. But they started coming anyway." Leora turned sharply. "They? You mean the thing from last night?" Jonas shook his head. "Not one thing, many." A chill ran through her. "Why didn't you tell me?" He gave a sad laugh. "Would you still have come?" Leora didn't answer. She wasn't sure. Jonas opened a small wooden box. Inside lay several old metal plates covered in strange symbols. They weren't human markings. They were alien military symbols. She recognized two at once. Her own people used those symbols in war. Leora felt her heart bang in her chest. "How do you have these?" Jonas hesitated. "Because once, I fought against the ones who used them." She stared at him. The agency never told her that her future husband was a war survivor. They told her he was a simple farmer. Jonas rubbed the back of his neck like he was ashamed. "I didn't want to scare you. You came here for marriage, not to hear stories about an old man fighting aliens decades ago." But Leora was no longer looking at Jonas like an old man. She looked at him like a soldier who had survived something terrible. She walked back to the cabinet and opened the second drawer. Gas masks, broken alien armor pieces, empty shells of weapons. Every item whispered danger. Then she found a small wooden carving shaped like an animal from her world. Burned at the edges, her breath caught. "This is from my home planet. This belongs to my people." Jonas swallowed hard. "Yes, why do you have it?" He looked at her with tired honesty. Because the creatures in the forest are not from Earth. They are connected to your people somehow, mutated, changed, angry. Leora felt the ground tilt under her feet. Her own species, tied to the monsters hunting Jonas? Jonas saw her fear and stepped closer. I'm not blaming you, Leora. I just didn't want you walking into this blind. But she wasn't blind now. She could finally see the truth. She stepped outside the barn and looked toward the forest. The fog had lifted, and the dark trees stood still like soldiers watching her. She noticed something she hadn't seen yesterday, a tall post at the edge of Jonas' field with deep scratches on it. Claw marks. Fresh ones. Jonas followed her eyes. They came closer last night. Her voice trembled. Why? Jonas took a deep breath. Because they know you arrived. A cold silence filled the air. Leora's eyes widened. Me? But why would they care about me? Jonas looked at the forest with an expression she couldn't read, fear mixed with guilt. Because they are not here to hunt you. He paused. They're here because of what I did to them years ago. Leora felt her heart squeezed out. Jonas Hawley was not just an older husband. He was a man with enemies. Alien enemies. And now that she had stepped onto his land, their enemies had become hers. Leora spent the whole day trying to make sense of Jonas' words. The idea that her arrival had drawn danger closer squeezed her chest like cold fingers. She had come here to start a new life, not to face creatures from dark forests. But fate had already tied her to Jonas' land and to his past. As the sun began to set, the air changed. The warm evening breeze suddenly grew sharp, carrying a smell she recognized from her planet: metal, soil, and something rotten. Leora felt her skin tighten. Jonas noticed too. He locked every window and placed wooden bars across the doors, like a man preparing for a storm. Stay close to me tonight, he said. His voice was steady, but his eyes kept scanning the windows. Leora followed him into the living room. Jonas kneeled beside an old chest and unlocked it. Inside was a rifle, old but well cared for. He checked the barrel, loaded it, and placed it on his lap. Leora frowned. You still keep this? Jonas nodded. I promised myself I'd never use it again. But promises don't mean much when something wants you dead. Leora swallowed. Jonas, what exactly hunts us? He didn't answer. Instead, he pointed to the ceiling. Listen. At first she heard nothing. Then, a low thump, another, and another. Creeping closer. Footsteps. Heavy, slow, unnatural. Leora's heart raced. They're walking on the roof? Jonas stood up and motioned for her to step back. His hands moved with the automatic calm of a trained soldier. Roof, walls, anywhere they can test. Test what? Our fear. Suddenly the house shook as something slammed against the side wall hard enough to rattle the windows. Leora gasped and stepped backward, bumping into a chair. Jonas steadied her with one hand. Stay. Behind me, he said softly. They heard breathing. Outside. Slow, deep, hungry. Leora had never heard breathing like that. Before, not even from the war stories her elders told. This was something twisted, something alive only because hatred kept it alive. Another slam. This time closer. The lights flickered. Leora trembled. Jonas, how many are there? Jonas raised the rifle. At least 3. Maybe more. Then it happened. A shadow passed the window, tall, thin, moving with a strange broken motion. Leora jumped. Jonas didn't blink. He followed the shadow with the barrel of the gun, silent and focused. Then a face appeared at the window. Not a human face. Not a face from her world either. Something in between, eyes glowing like dying embers. Skin stretched too tight. Mouth twisted in a permanent snarl. Leora froze. Her blood turned cold. The creature dragged its long claws across the glass. creating a high, sharp screech. Jonas lifted his gun, taking aim. "Don't move," he whispered. The creature paused. Its head tilted. It looked directly at Leora, as if it recognized her. Her breath hitched. "Jonas, it knows me." Jonas lowered the rifle a few inches. "They know your scent. Your kind fought in the same war." The creature slammed its clawed hand against the window, once, twice, harder each time. The glass cracked. Jonas fired. The shot exploded through the room, shattering the quiet night. The creature screamed, an awful sound like metal tearing. It disappeared into the darkness. For one moment, silence returned, but only one. From the back door came another crash, stronger than before. The door bent inward slightly, wood breaking. Jonas cursed under his breath. "They're trying to corner us." Leora grabbed a kitchen knife, her hands shaking. "What do we do?" Jonas looked straight into her eyes. "We survive." Another slam. Another crack. The door wouldn't hold for long. Then, the house shook again, but this time the sound came from above. Something heavy dropped onto the roof, claws scraping across the shingles. Leora covered her ears. "Jonas, it's on top of us." He grabbed her hand. "Basement, now." They moved quickly down the wooden stairs into the basement. Jonas pulled down a metal gate and locked it. Leora could still hear the creatures tearing at the walls above them. In the dim light, Jonas leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Leora noticed blood on his sleeve. "You're hurt." He shook his head. "Just a scratch." But his face was pale. She knelt beside him. "Why are they doing this? Why hunt you?" Jonas finally looked at her with the truth he had been hiding. "Because 30 years ago, I killed the one who led them." Leora stared at him in shock. Jonas Halle wasn't just an old husband. He was a marked man. And the creatures outside had not come for revenge. They had come to finish what their leader died trying to do. The basement shook again as something scraped across the floorboards above. Dust rained down from the ceiling. Jonas pressed his shoulder against the metal gate, breathing slowly, forcing himself to stay calm. Leora watched him, his hands trembling. His face pale, and she realized this wasn't the first time he'd faced such fear. This man had lived through worse. When the noise outside faded for a moment, Jonas closed his eyes, gathering the courage to say what he had avoided for years. "I never wanted to talk about the war," he began. "But you need to know why they won't stop coming." Leora sat beside him, holding the small knife she grabbed earlier. Though she knew it was useless against whatever was hunting them, Jonas exhaled slowly. 30 years ago, aliens attacked Earth. Your kind knows this story. But what they don't know is the truth of that war. Leora leaned forward. "What truth?" Jonas stared at the dirt floor, remembering. "Your people told the galaxy that humans fought brutally, that we were wild animals with guns." She nodded. That was the version her world taught. Humans, the stubborn species who refused to surrender. Jonas shook his head. "But you never heard what was done to us first." His voice dropped. "The invasion didn't start with soldiers. It started with assassins. And creatures like the ones outside. They were dropped into farmland, villages, towns, quiet places like this. Their job was to kill slowly. Break families. Break hope. Then the armies would come." Leora's blood chilled. Those tactics belonged to one alien clan, her clan. Jonas wasn't finished. "I was a soldier back then. Young, strong, foolish. I signed up because I thought war was simple, us versus them." He looked directly at her. "But it wasn't your whole people who attacked us. It was one splinter clan. A clan that followed a leader called Veilkar." Leora felt the name hit her like a punch. Veilkar, a warlord from the old records of her species. A monster even her elders feared. "He hated humans," Jonas continued. "He believed Earth belonged to him. And he sent those creatures to take it. Liara whispered, "But you survived." Jonas nodded. Barely. His hands clenched. He was no longer in the basement. He was back in the battlefield. During the last year of the war, my squad found Veilkar's breeding camp. Liara's eyes widened. Breeding camp? Jonas nodded. That's where they made the creatures like the ones outside. They twisted captured DNA, human and alien, mixing it, breaking it, creating things that shouldn't exist. Liara felt her stomach twist. Her people never knew this, or maybe they never wanted to know. Jonas continued, his voice tight. We attacked the camp. We destroyed everything we could, and He paused, swallowing hard. I killed Veilkar myself. Liara didn't speak. She could see how the memory shook him. He wasn't a normal fighter, Jonas said. He was half mad, half machine, and full of hate. I shot him 3 times before he fell. Even as he died, he said something I will never forget. Liara waited, heart pounding. Jonas looked up at her, his voice trembling. He said, "Death does not end me. My children will find you, and they will tear your world apart." Liara felt cold spread through her veins. She looked toward the basement ceiling where faint scratching could still be heard. The creatures outside. Jonas nodded. Veilkar's creations. His twisted children. They survived the war, hid in forests, and kept evolving. And now, he looked at Liara with tired, sad eyes. Now they can smell his killer. Silence filled the basement. Then Liara realized something else, something worse. Jonas. My people traded brides to Earth through the agency. Didn't it seem strange to you that they chose your farm, of all places? Jonas stared at her. She continued, her voice shaking. Veilkar's clan used scent markers on enemies. Your land may still carry that mark. When I arrived, they recognized my scent. They knew I was from the same species. Jonas' jaw tightened. So they think you are helping me. Liara nodded slowly. Or they think you belong to me. And that means... Her throat tightened. I am a threat to them. Above them, something slammed against the wall again, louder, angrier. Jonas grabbed her wrist gently. Liara, I survived a war that should have killed me. But this time, I'm not alone. She held his trembling hand. The creatures pacing above were not just hunters. They were Veilkar's last soldiers. And Jonas Halle, the human who killed their leader, had just become their final mission. The night passed without sleep. Jonas and Liara sat close in the basement, listening to the creatures pacing above. Sometimes they scratched, sometimes they growled. Sometimes the house creaked like it was breathing under pressure. But slowly, very slowly, the sounds faded as dawn approached. When the morning light touched the basement window, Jonas finally unlocked the metal gate. Don't step outside yet, he warned. They sometimes wait in the shadows. Liara nodded, but she could see Jonas struggling to climb the stairs. His knee was stiff, and when he reached the top he winced. The blood on his sleeve had dried, but it still made her chest tighten. Inside the house, chaos waited for them. Furniture knocked over. Glass shattered. Claw marks across the walls. The creatures had tested every defense. Liara knelt beside the broken window and ran her fingers along the claw marks. These are fresh, she swallowed, and deeper than before. Jonas didn't look surprised. They're getting stronger. Or angrier. He walked slowly to the kitchen and grabbed his coffee pot with shaky hands. Liara could see the pain in his movements. He was older, yes. But last night aged him even more. She stepped beside him. Let me see your arm. Jonas tried to wave her off. It's nothing, just a scratch. But she gently took his wrist and pulled up the bloody sleeve. The wound wasn't deep, but the skin around it was turning dark blue. Her eyes widened. Jonas, this is poison burn. Their claws carry toxins. He stiffened. I've survived worse. But Leora wasn't convinced. She placed her hand over the wound and closed her eyes. A faint violet light spread from her fingertips. Jonas' breath caught. What are you doing? Healing, she whispered. My people can close toxins if they act fast. After a minute, the dark blue faded, replaced by normal skin color. Jonas stared at his arm, shocked. Leora smiled softly. You protected me last night. Let me protect you too. For the first time since she arrived, Jonas didn't hide his feelings. He looked at her with quiet gratitude, but the moment didn't last. A loud howl echoed from the forest. Jonas immediately grabbed the rifle. They're calling each other, Leora said softly. Gathering? Jonas nodded. They never give up. She looked at the damage around the room. Then we can't keep hiding. We need to fight together. Jonas turned sharply. No, you're not fighting. You're too young, too untrained. She stepped forward. I know these creatures. I know their bodies, their movement, their weaknesses. He hesitated. Leora continued. They attacked because they think I stand with you, and they're right. Jonas' jaw tightened. Leora, this is my burden, not yours. She shook her head. Your burden became mine the moment I stepped onto your land. You didn't choose this war, and I didn't choose these creatures. But we are both in it now. Jonas looked away, his voice raw. I didn't want this for you. You deserve a peaceful life, not this nightmare. Leora touched his cheek gently. Jonas, you are the first human I have ever met who apologized to his bride. That tells me you are not weak. It tells me you are good. She smiled. And I choose to stand with you. His eyes softened, but his fear didn't disappear. He didn't fear the creatures. He feared losing her. They spent the next hours preparing for another attack. Jonas reinforced the doors, setting up traps he learned during the war. Leora mixed herbs and alien oils into small vials, creating smoke bombs that would confuse the creature's senses. They trained together in the yard, Jonas teaching her how to handle a rifle, Leora teaching him how to read the subtle signs of alien movement. As they worked, something changed between them. Trust grew, respect deepened. Fear became fuel. But the creatures were not sleeping. Late in the afternoon, Leora found strange symbols burned into the soil near the barn. Her heart dropped when she recognized them, a death mark. A promise of revenge. She ran to Jonas, holding the burned stick. They left this. It's a threat. They are preparing a full hunt. Jonas stared at the mark quietly. His shoulders tensed. It's time then, he said. Leora frowned. Time for what? Jonas lifted his eyes to hers, filled with grim determination. To end this before they take everything from us. She felt fear rise, but also something stronger. Courage she didn't know she had. Leora stepped closer. Then I will fight beside you. And for the first time, Jonas didn't argue. He simply nodded. Outside, as the sun dropped behind the forest, the air grew sharp again. The hunt had begun. The forest grew strangely silent as evening fell. No birds, no wind, no insects. Only the heavy, waiting quiet that came before danger. Leora stood at the edge of the field holding one of her smoke vials, her purple skin glowing faintly in the fading light. Jonas came beside her, rifle in hand, jaw tight. They're watching, Leora whispered. Jonas nodded. They always watch before they strike. But tonight felt different, stronger, purposeful. The creatures weren't acting like wild beasts anymore. They were moving with intention. With a plan, Leora felt a shiver run down her spine. Jonas, I think they're waiting for someone. Jonas frowned. Who? Before she could answer, a deep horn-like sound echoed from inside the forest. Jonas went pale. He knew that sound. He had heard it during the war, just before his squad was ambushed. Leora grabbed his arm. That's a command call. Someone powerful is directing them. Jonas lowered his rifle slowly. Valekar had a second in command. A creature more ruthless than him, if he survived. He didn't finish the sentence. Liara looked at him sharply. Jonas, there's something you don't know. The enemy clan didn't just lose their leader when you killed Valekar. They lost their heir, the warlord's biological son. He used to fight with his father. They called him Valesir. Jonas stared at her. You mean, the heir survived the attack? Liara nodded slowly. Survived and mutated. He was injured in the explosion your squad caused. He disappeared into the wild forests of Earth. My people believed he died. Her voice dropped. But creatures like him don't die easily. Jonas' grip tightened on the rifle. So the one leading them is Valekar's son. Liara closed her eyes. And he wants you alive. Jonas froze. Alive? Why? Liara hesitated, but there was no point hiding the truth. Because in their culture, revenge is only complete if the killer is captured, displayed, and executed in front of the clan. Jonas felt the air leave his lungs. He doesn't want to kill me here. He wants to take you, Liara finished. Alive. The horn sounded again closer this time. Jonas stepped back carefully. We need to get inside now. They rushed into the farmhouse, locking the reinforced door. Jonas grabbed more ammunition while Liara prepared the smoke vials. The marks on the ground outside glowed faintly in the moonlight, symbols that promised blood. Liara's hands shook as she tied her hair back. Jonas, I need to tell you something else. He looked up. The reason the creatures reacted when I arrived isn't just because I'm from the same species. There's something more. Jonas slowly put the rifle down. What is it? Liara swallowed hard. My family belonged to Valekar's clan. Jonas froze, but Liara continued, voice shaking. Not the war faction. Not the killers. My parents were from a peaceful branch of the clan. They rejected the war and fled long before it began. But we still carry the same scent markers in our blood. She looked away, ashamed. When I stepped onto your land, the creatures smelled the same clan bloodlines. To them, it meant you had brought a female of their enemy clan into your home. Her voice trembled. That makes you a traitor in their eyes. Jonas stepped closer. He didn't shout. He didn't blame her. He simply placed his hands gently on her shoulders. Liara, none of this is your fault. You didn't choose the clan you were born into. Just like I didn't choose the war. Liara bit her lip. But you're in danger because of me. Jonas shook his head. No, I was already marked for death long before you came. You just gave me someone worth fighting for again. Her eyes softened. Before either of them could say more, the creatures howled in unison, the sound shaking the windows. Jonas grabbed the rifle. They're surrounding the house. Liara threw one of her smoke bombs at the door. They're not attacking yet. They're waiting for the air. Jonas looked at her sharply. If Valesir comes here in person, Liara finished his thought. He won't leave without you. The horn sounded a third time, so close that the floor vibrated under their feet. Liara glanced toward the forest through the crack of the window and froze. A tall figure stepped out of the shadows. Taller than any human, covered in dark armor grown from bone. Eyes burning with sick yellow fire. Valesir, the mutated heir. Half alien, half monster. Fully wrath, Liara whispered. He's here. Jonas raised his rifle. Liara stood beside him, clutching her smoke vials. The house felt too small, the night too quiet, the danger too close. And outside, Valesir lifted his clawed hand and signaled the pack to attack. The ground shook as Valesir stepped closer to the farmhouse. His heavy claws dug into the soil, leaving deep marks with each slow, steady step. Behind him, the mutated pack formed a circle, their bodies tense and ready. Their glowing yellow eyes locked on the house, waiting for the command to tear it apart. Inside, Jonas and Liara stood shoulder to shoulder. Jonas checked his rifle one last time. Leora held 2 smoke vials in her hands, her breath steady but her heart racing. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. The silence between them was enough to say everything: fear, courage, and something deeper that had grown fast, like a flame in darkness. Then the air spoke, not in words, but in a deep growl that rolled through the air like thunder. It was a sound of old hate. A sound that knew Jonas. A sound promising pain. Jonas whispered, "He remembers me." Leora nodded. "And he wants you alive." A loud crack split the night. The front door snapped as claws punched through it. The wood splintered. Jonas raised the rifle. Boom. The shot echoed. A creature fell, screeching. Another took its place. The door shattered completely as 3 creatures burst inside. Leora threw a smoke vial. It exploded in purple mist, confusing their senses. Jonas fired again, hitting one in the chest. Leora leaped aside, grabbing a metal rod to block a claw swipe. The creatures moved too fast for humans. But Jonas was no normal human. War had taught him how to fight without strength, only instinct, timing, and grit. One creature lunged at him. Jonas slammed it with the butt of his rifle, breaking its jaw. Another leaped from behind, but Leora tackled it, her alien reflexes faster than its mutated limbs. For a moment, they held the ground together. But then, everything froze. The window shattered inward as Veilsur himself stepped through. He was massive, almost touching the ceiling. Half his body was armored bone, grown from the old war mutations. His face was a twisted mask of rage. His eyes locked directly on Jonas. Jonas tightened his grip. But Veilsur spoke, not with sound, but with a vibrating growl that shook the walls. "HU man. You, come." Jonas flinched. Leora felt the rage vibrating through her bones. Veilsur pointed at Jonas with one long curved claw. "You die by clan." Leora stepped in front of Jonas. Her voice broke through the air like a blade. "No, he will not die for your revenge." Veilsur roared, the force shaking the entire farmhouse. His pack surged forward, but he held up a claw, stopping them. He wanted Jonas alive, unbroken, delivered to the clan. Jonas whispered, "Leora, if he gets me, run." She gripped his hand tightly. "I'm not leaving you." Veilsur charged. Jonas fired 3 shots at point-blank range. The bullets barely slowed him. Leora hurled her last smoke vial at Veilsur's feet, blinding him for a second. Jonas grabbed Leora and pulled her behind the table as the creature smashed through it like paper. The ground shook, the wall cracked. The house groaned under the weight of the monster. Leora's voice trembled. "Jonas's weak point is the spine ridge. It's exposed when he bends forward." Jonas nodded. "I'll make him bend." Leora's eyes widened. "Jonas, no." But he had already moved. Jonas stepped forward, shouting, "Hey, warlord, you want me? Come get me." Veilsur roared and swung his massive claw. Jonas dodged, but the claw scraped his shoulder, sending him stumbling. Veilsur bent forward to grab him. Leora saw the spine ridge open only for a second. She grabbed a broken metal rod and ran with all her strength. At the last moment, Jonas rolled aside. Leora thrust the rod deep into the exposed ridge. Veilsur screamed an awful tearing sound that shook the entire forest. The pack backed away, confused, their leader collapsing. Jonas grabbed Leora's arm. "Get back!" Veilsur swung blindly, his strength fading. Jonas aimed the rifle at the glowing center of the creature's chest, the mutation core, and fired. Boom! Veilsur fell. The pack howled in panic, then scattered into the forest. Leaderless at last. Silence finally returned. Jonas leaned against the broken wall, breathing hard, blood dripping from his arm. Leora rushed to him. "Jonas, stay awake." He smiled weakly. "You saved me, again." She held his face with both hands. "We saved each other." Outside, dawn approached slowly, lighting the damaged farm. The danger had passed. The creatures were gone. The war had finally ended on this piece of land. Leora pressed her forehead against Jonas. "You apologized for your age," she whispered softly. "But your courage is something no young man could ever have." Jonas laughed gently, tired but alive. "Then stay with me, Leora, not as a bride from an agency, but as my partner." She smiled through tears. "I choose you, Jonas Hale, today and always." Together, they watched the sun rise over the quiet fields. Two survivors, two worlds, one final stand.